stop this fire. I was born to be making history. Something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Ember Podcast. It's been a minute since we've been on here, but I want to say thank you guys for tuning in again. Tonight we have an awesome cast on board for this episode. An episode all about Ashes of Creation, all about Alpha 1 and the Battle Royale mode and the upcoming modes that we're going to be kind of running into here in the next few months. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our cast. To the very left there, we actually have Danny. He's actually from our own guild. He's one of the official AOC content creators, an awesome MOBA player, and he can kick my butt at that pretty much any day. Although I will beat him at a first-person shooter, just saying. We also have Agelos as well. Agelos is from the Dungeon Crawler Network. He is one of the guild leaders of Hands of Fate, an awesome dude where I got my start on his podcast. So definitely want to thank him for coming on. And then we also... Yeah, of course, man. We also have Ziz as well. So Ziz is actually a content creator I reached out to, kind of got on here. Really wanted to kind of feature him on the show. He's made some awesome content around Ashes as well. If each of you guys want to kind of take a second, introduce yourselves, now's the time. Let's start off with Danny there.
Hi guys, I'm just a lonely little guy just trying to get by and start in the MMO world. Cruising along.
Oh, well, all right. Well, if you don't know me, I'm Agelos of the Dungeon Crawler Network. I run another Ashes of Creation podcast and been around for quite a while. MMOs are the love of my life. Don't tell my wife. Actually, she'd be fine with that. She loves MMOs as well. Yeah, and just hanging out for another podcast.
All right.
Nice. What's up? Love of my life. Okay, maybe. MMOs are pretty amazing. MMOs are pretty amazing. I'm Ziz. I do videos too, Twitch, all sorts of stuff. So you got to hang out and talk to some of you guys. Great people. I'm excited to jump into some of these topics and hear what you guys have to say.
Heck yeah. And I will be listing all of your links down below. So if you guys are interested in checking any of these dudes out, everything will be in the description down below. So go ahead and take a look at that. Let's start off with our first topic today, which is Alpha 1 Battle Royale mode. It's Fortnite come to Ashes of Creation. Let's kind of get into it. So first impressions, guys, what do you guys think so far of this testing mode? Obviously it's just an alpha, so it's kind of rough, but what's your opinion so far? Let's start off with anyone who wants to take it.
You talked about Fortnite is actually building in, like I picked up, there's potions that you pick up to use that show an outline, but I haven't been able to get something to actually build yet. Have you guys gotten anything to build?
Yeah, they're really touchy.
No, it's I feel like you need to be almost in a completely flat area to get them to work.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I see schematics, I just go, throw.
Yeah, it's a waste of an inventory spot for sure.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about it being Fortnite, and like as soon as somebody sees, like I put a video up recently showing some of the stream footage, and the first thing's, it's a Battle Royale game, and people forget it's an MMO, and they freak out. Once we get that building in, though, people will really be like, oh, it's a Fortnite clone, and I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm just going to jump into this right now, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Ziz. So glad you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I looked through our notes, and I'm not seeing it, but since we're saying about first impressions of the Battle Royale mode, we all know that the NDA is supposed to drop here, I think, on the 5th, barring any issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is probably the worst idea they could do. Okay. Yes, way too soon. The reason is because this game is being marketed as an MMORPG. That's what we are all here for. It's what we all love, except for Danny, who's still getting into it. Sorry, Danny, throwing you under the bus there. But it's being marketed as an MMORPG. This is what we are seeing now is Ashes of Fortnite. Like 100%. I know people like, it doesn't look like, I'm like, the only thing it's missing is the building, and technically it's there. Even the destruction is in perfect squares. You know what I mean? It is Fortnite to everything. And the second it gets out there on Twitch and YouTube and streaming it, people are going to look at it and going to either be immediately turned on by it if they are a PUBG or a Fortnite player, and then disappointed later on when they realize that that is not what the game actually is. Or they're going to be an MMORPG player, look at it, especially if they're only following it at a very distant level. Like they're not really in depth into it. They're looking at it from afar. They go into it and go, I thought this was an MMO. This is Fortnite. I hate Fortnite. Why
I would say
want-
that's true if Intrepid does not clearly market and explain what they're doing. And we know because we watch the Discord and we read everything, but 95% of people aren't going to do that. And unfortunately, up till now, they have done a very bad job of communicating. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to delete all your files to re-download the game. This is when testing time. They've been really bad at that. And so I'm worried, just like you said, they're not going to communicate again. It's going to come out because on my recent video, I've had 20 comments. This is a Battle Royale game. I'm not playing this anymore. This sucks. I'm out of here. Look, they spent all your money. This was a scam. They took it just to do like, and if Intrepid can clearly say we're only doing this to test combat, and they did in the live stream. I mean, Jeff talked really quickly about how the only mechanics they had to add was like the fog. So they didn't put a lot of work into this mode, but they're not going to, I don't think they're going to clearly define it, and people are going to get confused.
It still doesn't matter. No one's going to pay attention. You know what
Even
I mean?
if they did, even if it's riding in the sky, people wouldn't care.
Right.
No, they're not going to care.
I mean,
they're going
that's
to come
true.
onto your Twitch, my Twitch, your video. And by the way, I think we're sharing some same viewers because I think they copied pasted that comment.
They just
from your
bounce
video over
back
to
and
mine.
forth. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of the response that we're seeing, especially with the whole, this is Fortnite. What do I care? And it doesn't matter at this point whether or not Intrepid says it. It's not if the people are following what Intrepid says, they're already following and they know that this is just testing. Those aren't the people I'm worried about. It's the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are watching Twitch who are going to hop on and go, this is just another poor, Battle Royale mode. Because let's face it, while it's awesome for alpha, and Steven knows I love him and that I think it's awesome, it still doesn't look as good as some of the Battle
Compared to what's
Royale.
out there.
Yeah. So people are going to look at it, go, this is just a crappier Fortnite or PUBG. What do I care? And dismiss it offhand.
And then a year from now, when the real testing starts for the real MMO, people are going to see the name and go, oh, I don't want to play that Fortnite clone. And then they're going to skip over everything that it really is.
That's a
honestly
huge risk for
think
sure.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they should actually remove the NDA. And I know all the people who backed it and all the content creators, and I'm one of them. So I'm part of their content creator program as much as almost everyone else is. And I don't think they should remove the NDA until Alpha Phase 2 when it's actually an MMO.
I can kind of agree with you on that. That Alpha 1 Phase 1, that is very much kind of confusing for people that are just casually glancing at it. Even on the live stream itself, there was like maybe 30, 40 comments as they were literally explaining what it was and what was for testing, saying, this is stupid, it's a Battle Royale, this is a scam, it's just like, it's going to stay like this forever, they're going to keep it in the game. Like literally as Steven himself was saying, this is just for testing, this won't be in the future game, this will just be, just to figure out combat, just so we can kind of figure out the basic mechanics of combat. Is this working? Can these things connect? And everyone's just like not listening. It's like one ear out the other. But with all that being said, it does seem like they're kind of going down that road. So, what other impressions have you guys had? Like as far as just the testing itself goes, because from my experience and just from seeing, I can kind of talk about this since, you got to see a lot of the footage from the Alpha 0 tests. It actually seems a lot smoother from what they showed in those old footage videos. They've made a lot of improvements, it seemed like, in those videos themselves, That's kind of tiptoeing the line with what's under NDA and what's not, so I won't go too much into detail on that. But just from from seeing the prior streams on the Alpha 0 and seeing what they had before, it seems like they have made improvements as far as the overall mechanics go.
Yeah, I'll say, totally, like I was in one of the other tests earlier where they were testing some other stuff, hopped in, didn't play very long because it definitely felt very early, very alpha, and I've done that and I don't want to get burned out. So I was pretty quickly like, I'm not really into this. Yeah, they're making the game, but it's not really fun to play compared to the new stuff, which still has bugs, not finished, but was fun to play. Felt like a game that I could enjoy. So yeah, I was really surprised when I hopped in recently. They made a lot of progress since the last time I played.
For sure. This is my first MMO besides, lowly little RuneScape over there, but so I'm kind of intimidated by the whole bigness of MMOs. So going into like kind of my comfort zone of Battle Royale, I was able to pick it up quite nicely and dominate. So I personally have no, allegations, or I don't think it's bad at all. I think they did a really good job, and of course it's buggy, and of course it's alpha, and of course it needs to be improved, but I think the overall gameplay was fun. I had a lot of fun playing it.
All I want to say is my sweet summer child, because I'm sitting here going, you're jumping in during modern MMOs. You talked about the massiveness of MMOs. Okay, the massiveness of MMOs is 2002. Okay, back before instanced everything. So, that's all that was going through my head.
Running everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, the massively instanced multiplayer games is what most of these modern ones really are.
Let me ask you guys, this is part of our notes talking about the armors and weapons and things like that. We're talking about this game mode as it pertains to the MMO. This game mode's really different, where you pick up a piece of armor and that gives you an ability. You pick up a weapon and it gives you a specific ability. Totally different than what we'll see in the MMO, right? MMO will be, you have these abilities and skills and so on. Do you think that's a good or bad thing? If because people can potentially play this for a long time and get used to this style, this game mode. And then when the real game comes out, it's going to be different skills, different abilities, different combat. Do you think this is kind of hurting themselves? Because no matter what, whenever you make a change, people are always going to say, oh, it was better the way it was before. So they're almost shooting themselves in the foot having this temporary thing.
In extent, I wonder if they're actually going to keep some of these weapons skills like that though. Yeah, I wonder if that's something that's actually going to make its way into the game, plus your actual skills and abilities that you have on your combat bar. That seems like it'd be a very interesting twist to action combat, like having a sword that can, basically CC someone on its own with a special hit button, versus just having your class abilities. If you're, let's say a healer, a cleric, right? And you have that CC ability, now all of a sudden you have more utility. You can CC someone real quickly and then blink away with your boots, So it's like a whole new level of possibilities if they were to keep that in. But then again, it's also a huge nightmare to balance that thing, because there's so many different combinations at that point. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
All of the abilities that we've seen so far were abilities that they showed during Alpha Zero that were tied to classes. They're all class abilities. The only difference is in the Battle Royale mode, they strip your character out of any self-identity from a class point of view and allow you to find these abilities. Like that blink was the mage thing. The wall was the tank ability we've seen. Does anyone remember when they were doing the dungeon run through I can't remember what live stream it was, but they were doing that quick dungeon run and they had the walls they kept putting up, because even as soon as they walked in, oh, looks like someone was already here because the walls were up, albeit at the time they had that lion head type thing going on, but it's that same ability that was originally on the tank. And that's all it is. It's just stripping your character down to the nothing and picking up a random assortment of abilities, just like any battle royale. It's fun for what it is. I can't lie and say it's not fun for what it is, because it is fun for what it is. It's just, I'm not a real big FPS person. I'm not. I've had fun with it. And I think the only reason why I had fun with it, though, is because I looked at it as a logical progression towards the MMO I'm really excited for. So I was able to kind of get into it a little easier than I would say if it was just picking up Fortnite or PUBG, which I have Fortnite and I put all of 20 minutes into it. And that's as much as I've ever put into it ever. And probably all I will ever put into it.
So the question is, though, is that a reflection of the type of combat or the type of gameplay? Because the gameplay in Fortnite itself is very, it's very different, right? You follow a circle in, you have very randomized items, very randomized, defense, basically. So the entire game experience is way different than you'd have in an MMO, even if you keep in the aspect of getting a headshot with a bow, for example. I don't think the weapon aspect, those hitboxes that they have in there, I don't think that's gonna, negatively affect it. I don't think it just becomes a first-person shooter. I think it's still an MMO. It's just that they have this extra layer of ability and skills you have to account for. Does that make sense?
It does in a way, but it just dilutes down what the MMO really is.
Yeah.
But it's a game type. I mean, if they kept this in for live launch and kept it as a battleground, it would be a fun battleground. I really think it would.
I agree. It's like a battleground. It's a type of, but the thing that separates it for me is that it doesn't feel like an MMO because I don't have classes, I don't have abilities that are, you know what I mean? And so if they add that in later, they don't have it now for testing, that's fine. But if later on I'm using my real character that I built in the world that I went raiding on, and then I get to hop in this Coliseum thing, and I'm using the same, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be out playing one game and then hop in this game mode, and now I don't have any of my abilities, and I pick up a staff and I have a staff skill. That feels like a different game to me. That's why I wouldn't like it. If they can change it.
But they've already talked about how they're planning on balancing skills and stuff anyway, with the fact that all classes and stuff are going to have hard counters and hard, if they allowed people to come in with their original class, I think it takes away what the Battle Royale is, because if you sit there and end up like, say you're a mage and for whatever reason in the rock, paper, scissors game, the tank always kicks your butt and the tank player comes in, it's like, well, now I'm screwed, especially if it comes down to the last one or two people, because equally skilled players, the person who is against with the hard counter is just going to get floored, because that's how they're balancing the game. So in order to have a Battle Royale style game, you need that randomness, that hunting for what you're after, or else you lose the entire aspect of this, in which case it should just be a team deathmatch rather than a free-for-all Hunger Games style.
Yeah, and it's interesting talking about that, because one of my favorite Battle Royale games is called Realm Royale. And the reason I like it so much is because it's like an MMO, where originally they had classes with their own special abilities, and it felt more like a battleground in an MMO as opposed to, these other games. But they've changed it over and over and over, where they have classes and then they get rid of classes and then they change the abilities, and now they just added classes back in. So they're having that exact same problem that we're talking about now, is trying to find that balance, whereas it's not. So I don't know. I mean, I agree. This is just kind of a stepping stone to the MMO that I care about.
Yes.
I hope it just doesn't hurt them negatively, and not just from like a development perspective, but from everybody else's perspective playing this version. And then they go into the MMO and they're like, well, this isn't like the Battle Royale game. These abilities are different. These skills are different. I can't, you know what I mean? And then we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when it comes down to it, it's going to be a very difficult thing for them to market that correctly, and to make sure people do understand, like you guys were saying.
But they don't have a marketing budget. We're the marketing budget. That's the problem.
Well, we kind of. I mean,
it's both a problem and a blessing, right?
What if they did I'm sorry. What if they did a soft NDA drop? You were talking about not dropping the NDA. What if the content creators who were in it? I'm biased because I'm one of them, so everybody will hate me. But what if for a short period of time, maybe the leading week or two before they release it to the content creators, but they say you have to have this overlay or whatever. And overlay says testing purposes only, Battle Royale modes. You know what I mean? Like, that way, everybody who's watching gets the word out there instead of repeating yourself 100 times. You know what I mean? So they can use that as more of a marketing thing with people that they can have input on. Do that for a week, and then everybody gets to go, and it should be more well known by that point. Maybe that's something they could do.
Right. I could see them doing that, and then that would make sense. I know a lot of people that would also be upset, like you said. Right. They're like, you said no NDA. But I think that honestly would be a smart thing for them to do, because like you said, people aren't listening. So kind of bringing it back a little bit though. So let's say we do get to the actual MMO, so like Alpha 1 Phase 2. Now they're starting to implement the hitboxes and the tap target and all that stuff. How do you expect these weapons to kind of work in that sense? Like with the bow having like an actual hitbox you can hit for like the head and get a headshot off of that. Whereas if you're like tap target now, you also have a percentage base for that. Like, how do you guys kind of envisioning that working, and do you think will it work?
So just to clarify real quick, right now we're in
Mhm.
Alpha 1, Phase 1,
Yes.
Part 1,
Yes.
and then there'll be Part 2 and Part 3. And you're talking about after all that, Alpha 1, Phase 2,
Right.
they said they're going to add the tab target in at that time.
Mhm.
And this
That
will be like
Alpha
up to level 20, I think. or-
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Alpha 1 Phase 2 will be when it's closest to an MMO. It'll have about 25% of its map size, all 8 archetypes. I believe they said all the races, maybe give or take Tolnar, maybe not. Maybe they'll just delete Tolnar. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, as an alpha,
fine
I could
with
say
that.
Delete
down
the
with
elves
Eleanor.
too. You can get rid of
Delete the
as well.
elves, delete the Tolnar. Yeah, I'm sort of okay with that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, no, I'm just. You could send all your hate mail to Sinbad.
Yep.
That's
his
why we're
idea.
doing it. I'm just giving his email address for hate mail. So, but no, that's when it's going to be closest to an MMO. It'll have the tab target. It'll have the action combat that we're seeing now, as well as advancement to level 20 with levels. Because we know with the Battle Royale, there are no levels. There's nothing like that. It's not an MMO at this point. It's not even an MMO from this perspective that it has a ton of players. Technically, it's not even Fortnite because they haven't hit the point where they can have the 100 players on a map.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
they've
these-
done that
these-
once or twice. I've never been in a game that has 100 players. Most I've ever
No.
had was 50. Maybe that
Yeah.
was just me not getting in at the right time, but
Yeah, I've
I've
only
never
had
seen
50.
it at 100.
Yeah, I think they capped it at 50,
Yeah.
and then when the players weren't on concurrently enough, they lowered it to even 30. So
Correct. I've
Mhm.
seen 30.
Mhm.
One of my co-hosts over on From the Ashes, Alpha Soul, he said he was in one game. This was early on where they had it up to 100, and the buttery smooth feeling of the combat that was there was
Yeah.
no longer there when they hit 100
Okay.
players.
Really?
Yes.
To answer your question, Sinbad, you're talking about like headshots and
Mm-hmm.
aiming and stuff,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's something that can be really awesome, but really bad. Like one time, I remember my friend talking about how a new game he was playing, and he ran out, and then all of a sudden, like, and the way he described it was this like epic javelin came flying in and like hit him and right, and so like
Right.
when you think back of these moments, like I imagine rushing a castle and seeing archers lined up and knowing that if they're skilled that they could hit me in the head and crit me. So maybe I hold my shield up, right? Like it sounds cool, but the way it's actually going to play out is you're going to be out there doing a quest, killing some wolves. You're going to stop. You're going to go do something. You're going to look in your inventory. You're going to look up and then boom, you were instantly headshot. And it's probably not going to be a one shot like it is now in testing.
Right.
But you can't account for that randomness.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Or like when you're in a battle and you know as soon as that first person steps one step too close and they're instantly targeted by 50 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it sounds cool, but it would probably end up being a mess. So I don't know how they're going to work that action combat in with hundreds of people.
It's gonna be definitely different for sure. You know, I think in a sense it's kind of be closest like PlanetSide, you know, which is an MMO, but it's an FPS as well, right? So you're gonna have like way different tactics than you would normally have in like a traditional MMO, where you're now focused more on like squads. You're focused on never leaving, you know, without someone there to help kind of have your back, because you don't want to get that's time where you're basically all of a sudden at like 30% health because someone, you know, sniped you with a headshot while you're trying to, you know, gather something, right? So I think this game is going to have a way different feel to it than most traditional MMOs. I don't think it's going to be that feeling like Guild Wars 2 or, you know, like WoW, where you kind of just like, okay, if I get into a fight, I can kind of get out of it. It's going to be actually like, okay, now I'm actually fighting for my life. I can't just retreat, you know?
But that works in PlanetSide because you know you're in a PvP zone and there's like the war front, right? So like you spawn way back here and you know where the fighting is and you teleport out there. But in Ashes of Creation, that PvP can be anywhere.
Yeah.
You can be a level 5 out gathering some wood and just having a good time and listening to some music, and then instantly you are engaged in that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like normally in most games where there's a battleground, you're in that frame of mind. Here, you're not going to be able to just hang out with friends all the time. It would be very, very different for sure when you literally never want to leave the safety of the path because you're going to get shot in the head.
Yeah.
Which happened to me in the test, and I
It
died.
did me too. Yeah. That stupid miasma bow, 212 damage, and you only have 200 max. It's like,
Yeah.
are you serious? It's honestly, I don't think it's. Can I also say something else?
Yeah.
There's no projectile physics in the game right now.
Right now,
Not
yeah.
that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's all hit scan.
Right.
All bows, crossbows, except for the potion launcher. I think the potion launcher is the only thing with physics because it bounces. It's pretty funny. It's all calculated at time of trigger pull. So there's no arrow drop. There's no missile drop. There's nothing like that. People are like, I was leading people thinking it was a bow, and I kept missing it. I'm like, man, I just stick with melee weapons because I really suck. And I mean, I'm not a great player in FPSs anyway, so that, we'll say I suck there. But I thought I sucked more than I did until I realized, oh, it's calculating at time of pulling the trigger. It didn't matter how far away they were. You just put the crosshairs over them and hit.
Well,
It's tab target already, essentially, without the tab.
to an
I
You just have
extent.
to aim over them.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like ESO. ESO has a huge hitbox, but you still have to be within that hitbox to hit them.
Yeah, but it uses a soft target for range skills, whereas this doesn't per
Right.
se.
But you still have to just aim. Like,
Yeah,
Danny, what were you gonna say?
there is a name.
I was gonna say, I mean, you can't physically see the projectiles, but I believe there is projectile time. I was leading my shots and I was hitting them, unless it's ping related.
It's ping related. It's
Because-
definitely ping related.
I was definitely having to lead my shots.
Yeah, I would say
What
I
kind
was
of
kind of doing the same.
What kind of connection do you have?
Wi-Fi. So
You
not
you had
Oh,
ping
not
related.
LAN,
So,
not
I'm
LAN.
I'm wired and I have a 180 download, but as far as that goes, I was having to lead shots as well. Like, especially at distance. At distance, you definitely have to lead shots. Up close, not so much. Yeah.
I have a 200 meg up and down, even one way or the other. I never had to lead shots.
That's pretty
Never
good.
once.
Hey.
Now I know I'm the exception to the rule because I have fiber to the home. Not Google Fiber, as much as I would love Google Fiber, but where I live, actually, they brought fiber down over the mountain in order to get to the town. Well, I'm right at the base of the fiber, so they're like, we'll just run fiber to your house. Everyone else has to go switch over off to coaxial, but I have fiber, so I have a very good connection, and there is no lead whatsoever for me. I don't have to lead at all to hit. And the thing is, I see the damage calculating before the projectiles even reach the target. You see it go off.
That's weird, because I shot a guy really far away. He was completely standing still, and there's no bullet drop or projectile drop, and I was just shot him, and it took like 2 seconds before like anything happened. I thought I missed him, and then boom, I see it. I'm like, what just happened? I just
think,
killed this guy, but
I think Steven did confirm as well that except for on the weapons, like the melee weapons, the archery, the bows, the wands aren't hit scan. I think he actually did confirm that in the live stream, if I wasn't mistaken.
I thought he said that too, but from my testing, it sure doesn't feel that way.
It could
it's
be
definitely it feels weird without physically seeing. I couldn't see any projectiles, so I was just like, aimlessly shooting at people. Hopefully, it hits, it
Right.
connects.
Well,
I
next
think it's a
test,
little
get a
strange.
hold of the miasma bow. Okay, activate the ability, and you see the projectile go.
Yeah, that's the thing. With the wand of light, you can see the rays of light, and it was, I don't know, it felt like a projectile to me. It felt like exactly like I had to lead my shots.
No.
I don't know. I only use melee weapons. I don't do that ranged. I get up in their face.
I mean, so here's what you do, right? You get the invisibility cloak, you get the archmage staff, and then you just go up and you switch out. You just keep going. That's what everyone else was doing, apparently.
Yeah. Or the catfall boots at the very end of the map jump up in the air and never come down, and then the
Right.
person can't attack you. Yeah, I've seen that happen a few times too.
It's a fun game mode for what it is. I definitely think that there's going to be some very interesting mechanics later on. I'm kind of interested to see if they do have like something like the cat boots, like on the ranger type or something like that, like being able to jump up and like bunny hop around the map really quick. Like that would just be fun.
Yeah, out in the open world, I agree. And one of the things too is that transformability, where you can become a bush or a bear or whatever. I love them adding stuff already. That's just like fun like that. Like, yeah, there's a strategic use for it, but I can imagine being in the open world with those boots and just jumping off a cliff. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I love that stuff. It's just for fun and it's just enjoyable to use. And like, everything doesn't have to just be damage numbers. You know what I mean? So
I agree.
and this early, they're adding it already. It's fun to do. I like it.
I agree, man. Okay, so kind of getting into the details of the Battle Royale here, because there's going to be a test up on Friday, kind of letting people know, like, hey, what you be looking for, what you be kind of playing about, like, just so that they don't get stomped on, like as soon as they get out of the map. What would you say, like, your kind of go-to strategy has been for right now, as far as surviving that initial landing when you first get off of your Griffin?
Find a wand of light immediately and crush face.
Yeah, wand of light's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Very fast rate of fire, and if you get headshots, it's rough.
Yeah, wand of light. That's all you need. Done.
Okay. Well, let's see.
Yeah, I'm saying it in jest and yet not in jest.
Right.
Like seriously, there are certain abilities and it's alpha. It is alpha, so take that in mind. But there's certain things that are just like the combination of invisibility and the quartermaster staff. As long as you don't swing the quartermaster staff and you use the ability, you stay invisible.
Exactly.
Right.
So you just stay invisible and just use the quartermaster staff ability over and over and over again, and you're always hidden.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of buggy stuff like that.
A lot of buggy stuff.
Go to the Discord. A lot of people talk about stuff. You can pick up some tricks there, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Yeah. Danny,
There
you
is
say?
fall damage, just so you know. There's fall damage.
Don't fall more than
Yes.
15 feet. You will die.
Don't press E when you're on the Griffin, because
Yeah.
you will die.
You jump off your Griffin and you just fall. Yes.
Yeah, that's always a great one to do.
That one's funny to
May have
watch.
done that before.
Yeah, I've one thing I think hopefully they're going to obviously get better is one thing I don't like is the inventory management. I'm always like shuffling stuff around because like I don't want my melee to be 5 and my range to be 2. So then I walk up to stuff and it's like, well, I want to pick up these legs, so let me switch this and pick that up and drop this and switch that, and then you're just waiting to get headshot. And,
Right.
I mean, obviously they're going to make that stuff better, but not a fan of the inventory or
Yeah.
the UI. The UI is kind of a mess.
I actually kind of like the UI the way it stands now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the actual health bar UI with the armor, I think is fairly clean. And it reminds me a lot of the ESO UI that I use now, which is just ESO UI, which is very compact. And I actually really like the way it looks as of now from a UI perspective. But
See,
I'd say that my biggest complaint, sorry to cut you off there.
You're good.
I think my biggest complaint on the Battle Royale mode is that you can have multiple items of the same item and you can swap them out and still it can be off cooldown. I think one item should carry a cooldown for all that same item.
yeah,
That's my
I
biggest
agree.
complaint about the game right now.
oh, you mean people who carry multiple pieces of armor? That actually
Yeah.
is a tip for you to use. Carry multiple pieces of armor. If you have weapons you like, when your armor gets broken, you can fix it using the F1, F2. F1 is your top, F2 is your bottom. Another thing to note, as long as you have the mana, regardless of the quality of the armor you pick up, like they have rare, legendary, blah, 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 blah. Legendary's 50 armor. I think the lowest is like 20. You can actually get even 20 up to 50 as long as you have the mana to repair it up to 50. So you don't have to look for a legendary, just have it. But people do carry more than one piece of armor. So that way when their armor gets broken, they can instantly switch and have full armor again.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's not even just that though. It's like the using of the abilities. So I could be technically invisible as long as I want. Like you just have 3 pieces of invisibility armor and then you're good. You never have
Switch
to
it out
be.
once the cooldown.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's just a little bit. You can just do some really gimmicky things with that. There's too many like 4 blink boots. You could just
Yes.
Yep.
Move very, very fast. I think everybody's going to take it different levels of seriousness, right? Like some people are trying real hard, try hard. They're using what I would say are broken mechanics to win. You know what I mean? Like, if that's fun for you, I guess go for it. For me, I'm just like, help the game get better, right?
Yeah.
And by pissing off other testers because you're cheating or using broken mechanics so they don't want to play, that's not helping the game get better because they're not playing, right? Like, find a bug, report the bug. You know what I mean? Like, have fun, go in. That's great. But remember, this is just a little testing mode. This isn't the real MMO. So just don't sweat the small stuff. If it's broken, if there's a bug, don't freak out. The game's not ruined. You know what I mean? Just put a post up. It's going to be okay.
So actually, that kind of brings up an interesting question. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jealous.
No, go ahead.
So Steven himself actually confirmed that the Archmage companion staff, that ability, being able to use that ability while invisible and stay invisible, was intended. So it kind of gives you like an insight to like his mindset as far as people like using exploits. And he said himself, like, you know, during the live stream, that if it's not something that's like, if it's not necessarily actually like a, if it's not actually like a real exploit, you know, it's like you're not like actually like breaking the game, but you're just using something in a way that people didn't really intend it to be used, that's okay. You know, that's kind of like his mindset on things. So it makes you wonder, like, what else is in the game that's going to be just really, really different that people didn't really think could be used that way, that might be kind of broken, but Steven himself will actually be like, that's perfectly fine, use it like that. Go ahead.
All right.
I mean,
you go first. No, I talk a lot. You go first.
Okay. I would say a cool mechanic that I was wanting to try, and I think, you know, getting to maybe when they add in the duo squad kind of option, I want to try. There's a, I think it is some sort of mace that will apply a hammerage to yourself or to an enemy, and if they move,
Bone crusher.
Yes. Okay. Bone crusher. Thank you. And then, so if they have hammerage applied to them and they walk around, they're going to be dealing damage. So, you know, they stand still. However, I thought, what if one player applied the hammerage to somebody and then the other person with the scepter of, I think, Rifter? And you teleport each other. You teleport that player. I wonder if that distance moved will count as damage.
Because they moved. Right.
Because they moved. You know, it's kind of a gimmicky way to force them to move. I wonder if that would be intended. I haven't tested it. You know, I think that'd be kind of cool to, like, a cool little mechanic.
Yeah, I agree. There's lots of little things like that, man. Like, it's something that we just got to get into and test now, because I want to figure out like what is possible at this point, and then what will be remaining possible, you know, once the game launches. Because if there is like intentional ways for you to kind of like use items in ways that aren't really like when the developers were creating it, like let's say if they created a like a bow that has the ability to like recharge like a dot damage or something like that, like a bleed or something, and you can swap it out with something else, then you know, like experbates that, you know, like I wonder if there's less little things you can do like that, little things that you can break, little things that you can kind of mess with that people weren't intending initially but is okay now.
I don't think they care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
for
going to
be
for testing, because I don't think that, and as much as I say it's a fun battle mode, I don't think it's going to show up in the MMORPG. Hence why I say NDA probably shouldn't be lifted for this phase. I don't think they care. I don't think these abilities are going to show up right now. And when you say for testing wise, like, this isn't focused alpha testing. All they care about is to see what kind of server to client response you're getting and how many people they can fit on the server. That's all you're testing at this point. You're not testing mechanics. You're not testing, oh, is this ability broken or not? Because I don't think they care.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, that's probably true. But at the same time, you know, you can kind of guess at it, right?
Oh, no, if you want to play with it, that's great. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't go into some insane depth of how can I use the Archmaster quarterstaff in live launch, because in reality, it's probably not going to be the same.
Don't theory craft a year in advance, just next week or something.
Yeah, have fun with the game, but in reality, the only thing you're doing, you ever notice with the testing, they haven't focused people going, hey, we really want to see what this ability does. Because that's what they'll start getting into with focused alpha testing, when they're going, listen, this is what we're going to try to do. So we're going to auto level everyone up because we're going to test this, or we're going to funnel everyone into this zone. That's when they're doing very specific focused testing, and they'll actually have on the forums telling us what they want to do. Right now, it's just log on and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I can see that. I wonder, though, if they're going to actually have that much focused testing too, you know, because it seems like the upcoming modes in this case don't really allow for that too much. Especially
in these
with
two
like
modes, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean with like castle sieges, the horde mode.
Now, Castle Siege may be a little different. Remember, Castle Siege is going to be something. I think we did an interview with Steven some time ago where he let some info drop about Castle Sieges, where Castle Sieges are going to be an instanced affair. With the, the guild versus guild castle type affair, or at least a type of tagging system so that, randoms can't run by and take credit for things. The castle mechanics, especially with the siege and defend mechanics, very well may play out to the live game. Maybe not abilities, but definitely the mechanics of it will probably play out to the live game. Horde mode, if anything, they're probably just playing around with the the server load and the monster coin system. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. Both of these, part 1, 2, and 3 that we're saying, are them just getting the systems working for massive scale, lots of people, so they can take those modules and plop them in the MMO portion of the game. And for the Castle Siege and the Monster Coin. And yeah, I agree. I wouldn't worry too much about the specifics of it. One thing though that I really liked is the way the game feels. Right, like I played a lot of games, especially a lot of Battle Royale games that just feel early alpha, not polished. Like they just look bad. Like you're trying to pick up a weapon and like it doesn't work, and you know what I mean? It's just like clunky and it's annoying to play. And hopping in this right away, not perfect, lots of problems and stuff, but it felt responsive. And parts of it, you're like, this is polished. This feels like a good game,
Except for the dodging.
Yeah.
I had
Sometimes the
issues
dodging
I couldn't. If you tried to
Really?
re-key bind it, it never worked again.
I was having that problem too. The
keybinds have
remapping
issues.
is,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
rough.
I found it's actually better to just use like your keyboard macros and your mouse macros to make it happen rather than try to keybind it in game. It's like otherwise it just messes itself up. You're like, okay, it doesn't actually recognize you switch the key.
Yeah.
But like for example, the teleport that we've seen, using that in game is instant. The second you
feels
touch
good.
it, you go through it, and you don't have clipping issues. Like I played games that even I think it was Guild Wars 2. I was like a year and a half before the game came out, and you could like teleport into sides of terrain and clipping and playing. And that game wasn't developed for a long time. And so the fact that they're able to do stuff now that feels good and more complicated stuff like that, where you can like leap, when you use left and right mouse button with the melee ability and you do that leap thing up and down hills, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But the fact that it's smooth and instant and responsive, that's a pretty big deal compared to other games that have been in Kickstarter for years. And you go and play them and you're like, this does not feel like a game that's ready. You know what I mean? And this parts of Ashes of Creation, you're like, that feels like it's ready.
Yeah, actually, back at PAX West in 2017, their first PAX, I got to play that in the PvP arena back then, and they had the ability to teleport. And there was actually a glitch I found where you could teleport out of the starting area using the mage. Basically, you could go right through the gate, get over to them, and then jump into their starting area and start attacking you if you wanted to. Which is a lot of fun, and like they're like, "Oh, don't show anyone that." Like it was supposed to happen like that. I'm sorry, but the fact is, like that kind of stayed in the game. That kind of stayed in like this alpha, alpha 1 phase 1 mode, because you can teleport through small walls, you can teleport through fences. So I wonder if like that will continue to stay there. Those effects. It seems like they've had that implemented for a long time now.
It makes sieges interesting when you can just teleport through gates and some walls and
right.
Interesting.
I mean, then the mages would be like basically mandatory at that point.
Yeah,
You don't-
depending on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm-
Sorcerer. He's making that OP.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most excited for is the Castle Siege. That's gonna be my favorite testing phase. I'm really interested to see how the destruction works. That's something that Camelot Unchained has been working on for years to get their destruction to work well. Crowfall had voxels like a year and a half ago. They took them out and now they're trying something. So it's really hard to have destructible environments that work well without having a huge performance hit. So when we see they want 100 or 200 people in that testing phase with destruction, I'll be really interested to see how that works. So that's coming from Dark Age of Camelot. That's my favorite game mode is Castle Sieges and stuff. So
Yeah. I think, Jealous, I think you mentioned this actually on your podcast where when you destroy a house, like the part that you destroy just kind of like disappears. Like it's like a hole there.
Yep.
I wonder
Perfect
like,
square.
right. It's like, well, that's realistic.
Yeah.
But like they're already kind of like at least working on that at this point. You know, they have like that mindset of this is something we want in the game, and they're able to like figure out, okay, I can take it away. Now maybe they just add on like animation to that so it doesn't look so weird, you know?
Yeah, I know I said that on our podcast as well, where it's like, and that's what made me feel Fortnite-ish, was because it's in perfect squares. If they could add some sort of realistic looking, when things break, it shatters in a way that makes it look like
Crumbles.
good shatter. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would feel good. And I'm fine with that. But the perfect square it feels gamey to me. Right?
Arcade,
like,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And there's the kitty there. She won't leave me alone.
I would rather have gamey and just disappears though, instead of what Elder Scrolls Online does, or actually not ESO isn't even the worst example, but it's kind of same with Dark Age came out, where there's specific spots where you destroy and it's always exactly the spot, right? And there's lots of spots. ESO, there's lots of options along the wall, but you can't pick like next, you know what I mean? Like some games are more granular, where it's like, I want this little tiny hole to get through this back door into this gateway, instead of, oh, that wall fell down exactly like every other wall and there's the same rubble that's always the same rubble. You know what I mean? Because after you see that 100 times, it's not interesting, it's boring. So
I guess, but it takes that 100 times to get to that point. Whereas this is the first time you're like,
true.
no.
But
You're
those are
right,
on small
anything-
houses though. Once you have a big castle and there's, 500 different points of entry.
Yeah, but if you still break a wall and it's a perfect square, it goes, oh.
True.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I get we're not, without a perfect physics engine, you're not going to hit a rock and it's going to, fall in a random pattern. It's not going to happen. And I'm not delusional to assume it will. But to push that immersion, to get you into the game that you are trying to play, having a perfect square disappear does not do that.
Yeah, it's rough. It's just clunky.
I don't care if the rocks fall the same way every time. At least they fall.
That's true. I mean, that is definitely true. And I think to an extent, it has to be kind of like a balancing act for them, considering how massive this game is going to be. Like you don't want necessarily like really over the top like animations and physics when you're also trying to balance out like possibly 100 versus 100 or 200 or 300, people on the same screen. Because at that point, like I feel like, my poor 1080 is going to just burst into flames. Like there's not really a good way of, I think doing that and making it look really, really good and having that many people on there. But maybe I'm wrong.
Talking about performance, how did you guys think performance-wise it was working?
I mean, me personally, I had the AMD R9 390, so not a very, very old video card, and I was running maybe 30 frames outside the battles, and then in battles it would get pretty crazy for sure. And I couldn't zoom in. I think that was really cool that they had like the crossbow, and I think it was the one of it was a grimoire that actually had scoped, and I couldn't really use that function because as soon as I did, my frames would go to like 5 or 10. So it's pretty optimized, at least for my, jinky little video card. But it was all right.
I run a 1080 and it was pretty buttery smooth almost the entire time until they started increasing server numbers. But that wasn't my machine as much as the server latency overall. That I could tell. Because I actively, like on one of my monitors, I'm always watching my CPU. I have my heat threshold. I have my GPU clocking. I have all that. It looks like NASA over here with all the stuff sitting on because of all the things I track. And I never touch. I don't think my CPU went above 25%. My GPU was sitting at 15, even when there were a handful of people fighting with me. I think the most I've ever had though was like 4 at a time fighting that I saw. And I had no issues in that point up until there were a few times where server stutter, but at that point it was entire server, because I was on Discord with some of our other guildies who were also in the alpha test, and everyone's like, did you guys just freeze too? It's like, yeah, we all did. Everybody did.
Yeah,
So I think early on it feels pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree, man. I mean, just I can't really talk about the earlier alpha, but just from my experience in this one, it's definitely an amazing experience to be at like this early on and not have constant stuttering, not have constant frame rate drops, not have constant issues when you're trying to zoom in or you're engaging in action. I can tell you in like a game like PUBG, which is obviously like another battle royale game, I had that continuously, and that game has been out for like a year and a half, 2 years now, right? Like it's still got issues, and this game is already doing, I think, a better job in the optimization sense compared to that, which is kind of sad, but it's true.
Right.
It's very true. I mean, like, this is something that I think if you have like a 1060 or 1070, like, you should be perfectly okay even at this point to be able to play it, which I don't know really any other alpha type games that could do that or could say that at this point.
And just to keep the team humble, let me just throw it out here. Fortnite runs on the same engine.
Yes.
And can have more players in it.
Well, true, but I mean, there's always Fortnite's had a lot more time to optimize things too, though. They've had a lot more time to work on their network code, the engine itself, right?
I agree.
AOC is doing a lot of this as custom work on the engine itself. They're not just taking the base engine; they're actually rebuilding it to where they can do quite a lot with it.
Right, they're taking it to try to make an MMORPG out of it. What I'm saying, and I do agree, you are 100% correct, because out of the box, I believe you could get Fortnite numbers with the Unreal 4 code, the net code on the back end. I agree. But they haven't got their network code to the point, at least that we know of, that they can even match what the in-engine code can do for games like Fortnite. So they have a good way to go, especially when it comes to the concurrent amount of players on a server in order to make it an MMO, because 100 players does not an MMO make.
No.
Right.
100 players doesn't even a battleground make in some cases.
And we keep talking about how good they've done in such a short amount of time, which they have, which is great. But on the flip side of that, it doesn't matter when you look at it in the sense that we're a year from launch, right? Like they said before 2020, we're in October already. That's basically a year. I mean, I don't know how much work they're going to get done in the last month. Usually it's polished to ship the game. So if you look at it from that light, great, you've done a lot of work quickly, but how the point they're at now and a year from launch. When I think of, again, ESO, Guild Wars 2, playing those games a year from launch, those games were fully fledged MMOs. You know what I mean? Like, they were 95% done, and here we are talking about the combat's good and they've done a good job in the year they've had, but we're like 5% done with a year to go. So when you look at it like that, maybe not doing so good.
Yeah. I do believe from a team perspective, they're doing a lot of things very quickly.
And they're hiring a lot. They're going to have like 200 people. But those take time to train and get on board, and some don't work out. And
exactly. Or
look how long it takes WoW to just make an expansion.
And the thing about WoW, and I will say this because I've spoke with a lot of people who either work there now or worked there before. There is something mystical about Activision Blizzard where people tend to just drink the Kool-Aid, and everyone is on board with the vision, it feels like. So you have a cohesive team from start to finish. The problem with artistic types is that they are very independent. They like to do their own thing. They have their own art vision. And sometimes reeling them back in to a unified vision is hard to do.
Well, it's not just like, I mean, like you're talking about art, it's not just like delivering papers. You don't just go do the job and, okay, we're done. Art takes time. You got to be inspired. You have to try new things. It's like you're talking about.
And sometimes the new things aren't what the art direction is supposed to be.
Right.
We've already seen this between some of the stuff they showed early on. And I know I'm not a big fan of the aesthetic they have now. Whatever. But the stuff they had early on versus the stuff that they have now versus the stuff that, say, Bacon does versus the stuff that Javier does versus the stuff that Matt Broom does is all very different.
It doesn't feel like it fits.
It doesn't feel like it's in the same game.
Yeah.
And that's just because they are 3 different artists, all individually insanely skilled, but without bringing them together to say, no, you have to flare up or you have to take some flare back or you have. We don't see that now. And like you said, hiring all these people is great, but you're also bringing them from their past experiences, their past jobs, and you have to streamline them into the Ashes vision, which I don't know if they have there yet, especially with only a year to go.
Right.
No, and by vision, I don't mean Steven's vision. I mean, vision's a bad word. Culture's the better word.
Right.
They're not into the Intrepid Studio culture yet of how things are supposed to work, because I don't know if they have that completely panned out. They're in such a rapid growth state that while, yes, this would have been great if this was 5 years ago and they still have 5 years of development, but with 1 year of development,
Right.
I mean, I have a couple projects at my job, which is not creative. I am an IT manager at a financial institution. And in 2019, I have a couple big network moves. And I can tell you what, I'm not even hiring a new network staff, even though one's actually in my budget. Because by the time I brought him on board and got him to where I need to be, where he needs to be, I would probably already have the project done. It's too late for me at this point in time to bring on another network staff, regardless of the fact that I have the budget for it. Because by the time I, got them acclimated to the institution's culture, got them settled up in their job and ready to do with what we need to do with this network, it'll probably be done. I'm not ready.
It makes sense.
So.
I mean, to an extent, yes, they're doing this in a very quick time frame, but at the same time, we don't really know how much actually they have done behind the scenes, right? Like what they're showing us right now is also a very limited vision of specific types of modes, specific types of things. So they may actually already have a ton of different content completed, or at least at a point where they can just polish it up. And now they're kind of moving on to like the other things, you know? I mean, it wouldn't make sense for someone like, Jeffrey Bard to let Steven say, we're going to have this done by December 31st, 2019. If it wasn't a goal that they could actually achieve, because he seems to be actually pretty experienced with that. I know Steven's kind of like, he's very optimistic and he's got a lot of ideas. And
Steven's a visionary.
Yeah, he's a visionary, right?
Visionaries need to be brought into line with what is reasonably.
Exactly. So
This is why Hideo Kojima always had to have somebody to tell him what to do.
Yes.
Because he's a visionary, but he needs people to structure him.
Yes. Exactly. So
this is why Brad McQuaid shouldn't be allowed to do anything by himself.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, though. Like seeing that, Jeffrey's there, I don't really think that they're behind schedule or that they can't accomplish what they're trying to accomplish in this case. I think that, they definitely have to keep up this pace, because if they do keep up this pace and continue to bring out this kind of like content at a mind-numbing pace like they're doing right now, I think they can hit it. But it's a matter of whether or not they can. Obviously, there's always delays, so it could be that it gets pushed out past 2020. But if that happens, it happens. Yeah.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
I fully expect it to, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
mean, by that rationale, Star Citizen should have been out about 5 years ago.
Well, Star Citizen's a whole different story.
Camelot Unchained, then Crowfall.
Yeah.
I agree. We should expect the game to be pushed back. The problem is the culture they're cultivating with their player base.
Mhm.
Every time we hear from them when it comes to the timetable is, we're ahead of schedule. We're doing this early. It's going better than it. So, and I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying they're not ahead of schedule, but they're setting that expectation every time. And you're already seeing on Reddit and stuff, people talking about, can I play this game yet? I bought beta and it's been barely a year from Kickstarter. And that was my post. It's like, you sweet summer child. Is this your first Kickstarter game? They're going so quickly. So if they have to postpone, if they have to move something back, I don't know if the majority of the player base is going to be able to handle it. Like, they're gonna be like, wait, what? I thought you were 5 years early. Like, we're like, you're talking about a Jellos, Camelot Unchained. They're like, hey, we got another delay. And they're like, okay, whatever. It's 57 delays. We're good to go. Keep going. You know what I mean? Like, they don't care. So,
But part of that is Mark Jacobs.
right.
I don't know
Two
if
very
any-
different developers.
Ziz, I'm sure you've dealt with Mark before. I know
I love Mark.
Mark is fantastic. Mark is one of those developers. The reason why they are so in depth there, why they all drink the Kool-Aid there, and I know this is an Ashes podcast, but this is talking more about development, is because he so believes in his product. Not saying Steven doesn't. He still offers refunds if you're not happy out of his own pocket.
Jeez.
He refunded people 3 years after Kickstarter finished.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very different development
Very different.
and different philosophies. And so,
Mhm.
again, I mean, we were talking about earlier, their communication and explaining to people, what to expect from the testing. Same sort of thing, explaining. All we've heard so far is we're doing great. We're ahead of schedule. We're doing this 3 months early. You know what I mean? Like all the time you watch, some of the PAXs and stuff where the first time Steven announced action versus tab targeting, I don't know if this was rehearsed, but he said, he's like, oh, I haven't told Jeffrey this yet, but we're going to do both. We're going to do a combo thing. It's going to be cool. And Jeffrey's like, okay, like they're setting themselves up for a future where if something goes wrong,
It's going to hit them hard.
Yes, it's going to hit them very hard. And I hope it doesn't happen. But every game I've seen has been delayed. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to be ahead. It's kind of like me at this point. I have a whole list of stuff that I had to do. I love goals. That's what I set them up. And I started knocking stuff out. And my boss, one of the senior VPs there, was like, wow, you were just hammering out thing after thing after thing. I'm like, don't be so impressed. These are the easy things,
Right.
Like, yeah,
Right.
I got 30 things done this week. Yeah. And I know your previous guy might not have, but this is the easy stuff. See this project right here? This is about 8 times as long as all of them combined, right? This is going to drag on for months. And
But they're not
being
doing the
honest
easy
with
stuff. They're doing the hard
Are they
stuff.
not?
Castle sieges, the monster coin system, having 200 people, destruction. When I think of making an MMO, like they can have 50 artists in the back, 3D modeling, making landscape.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one
I mean,
person. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they can have people doing that stuff. When I think of the difficult systems to introduce, getting combat the way they want to feel. Crowfalls had to redo their combat 4 times. It's taken them 2 years and they're still not settled on it. Right. So I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like they're doing some of the hard stuff now. They're tackling it with this battle mode. They're trying the combat and stuff. So
I'd agree
I'm
with
going
you
to
on
find
that.
my devil horns because I'm going to play devil's advocate. Okay. You ready? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Let's do
Hard
it.
mode. 200 people. Claim 10,000 people on a server.
yeah, but
Server
and on-screen fighting are 2 different things.
it doesn't matter. They can't do either.
Well, true at this point. That's
Yeah.
why they're
Yeah.
testing. That's why they've introduced it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? You can't.
They didn't put it off
I-
to the end.
Yeah.
Other games
I
put that off to the end.
I agree, but I'm making the argument for the hard versus the easy. Okay.
Right.
Action combat. Hard. Action combat tab target hybrid that apparently Jeffrey didn't know about. We haven't seen that yet. It's easy to separate them and play them different, by themselves. But how are they going to work together? We've already been questioning how they're going to work together.
Mm.
Does the action combat feel good? Yeah, it feels Fortnite, but that feels good for what it's supposed to be. How's it going to be when you actually get the tab in it? That's what I would say is hard. They're not at that yet.
And they won't be until quarter 2 of
Yeah.
next year?
Yeah, Alpha 2.
Which gives them 6 months to merge them, change them, polish them, perfect them in 6 months.
Yeah, I don't.
Hope it goes right on the first try.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. How many times has Camelot or Crowfall had to change their combat system?
They've had 3 completely different
Mhm.
combat systems. Camelot Unchained basically had to rewrite their entire code to facilitate their skill and combat system, which took them like 2 more years.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Some of the biggest things, the node system, we haven't seen that since Alpha 1, and more or less what they're saying is it's working.
But we didn't really see it. We saw, here's an empty field. Let me turn around. Poof. Oh, there is a town.
Exactly. We haven't seen that yet. And we haven't seen it function in a live way that's satisfying. We haven't seen the function of the different racial influences.
Seafaring.
We haven't seen any boats. We haven't seen any world events that happen that are real. Yeah, the node popped up. Great. I guess. I mean, and even that, I don't think we've seen anything grow in the way that was described yet. These things that they want to say that are difficult, which I'm not saying they're not doing. I'm just saying, looking at this from, this is going to be released at the end of 2019, which just for everyone is aware, we're at the end of 2018 already.
Right.
I mean, it's October, 10/3 is when we're recording this. We're at the end, they have a year and 3 months if they want to get out before the 2020 deadline. And like you said, the last month or two at least is just polish and getting everything ready, praying that the login server works when all the people hit it at once. That is what we're going to start seeing.
Right.
But we're not seeing that yet. What we are seeing is a lobby game that has fewer numbers than current lobby games currently have. Yeah. I know I'm devil's advocate. I think they have a far way to go.
I agree with you as far as completing things. There's still a lot that they have to actually show us. But
I didn't breathe once in that.
But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not actually that system already completed, right? It just means we haven't seen it yet.
True.
So it could be that they are working on that simultaneously. It's like they're using the agile system of development right now. So they could have multiple different teams working in multiple different aspects of the game, and then it gets put together, right?
And that would be smart.
Yeah.
But we can only make these assumptions off what we have seen.
Right.
And like I said, Steven knows I love him. I'm probably one of his biggest fans. I've been doing a show about him since the game first became public. So obviously I'm a hyper fan, but I'm a realist as well. Steven is a visionary, not a game developer. He will tell you that.
Yeah.
So I think when he comes up to us and says we're ahead of schedule, I feel like Jeffrey's in the background going, I told you that in confidence. I really didn't want that to get out. I'm seeing the Office scene in my head where they're talking about the Buffalo branch closure. And they're like, David Wallace told me. He's like, I told you that in confidence. Why did you think it was a good idea to say it at a company picnic when everyone's here? That's what I'm seeing in my head. Because, I love to say, everyone likes to go, we're ahead of schedule, because then your fans get hyped. Mm-hmm. But when they hit that brick, then that brick comes flying towards their head. I think it's going to hit them hard, and it's going to set them back further than they expected. And I'm thinking it's going to come around with that network code, because it is custom. It is complete. I don't know of anybody that has 10,000 people on a server, period. I actually call BS on that right now. To say you can fit 10,000 people on a server. I don't think the tech exists, and I come from a tech side. I could be completely wrong. I don't think I am.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty confident that there's probably been a couple of games out there that have had at least that many people, either in instances throughout the server, or maybe not all in the same instance, but but they're not using instances like that. You got to remember, this is supposed to be a cohesive one server. They're only using instances in very limited situations. Okay, so you have to take that out of ESO definitely has 10,000 people on a server, probably more because they're mega server, but that's 100 servers that seamlessly mesh together and pass you back and forth between servers. To have 10,000 people on one cohesive server without phasing, because phasing will not work in this game
as the vision describes. Because if there's phasing, I'm in one phase. Oh, look, an empty field. Ziz is another phase. Oh, look, a metropolis. Like it's not going
Caravans
to work.
and none of that would work. So, I mean, we look at like this testing phase, this battle royale mode, and we're like, yeah, it looks great. So you're looking from like the time from when they started till now. Yes, it's great. You look from where you're at and where you have to finish in a year. You're like, I'm really scared. Like,
yes, exactly.
And I wish the best for you, but like, and I'm honestly worried with how much, and I don't know, I don't work there. I haven't talked to any of the developers, but it certainly seems from the outside in that they're working 80, 90, 100 hours a week because they're on board with this vision, which is great. But that burns people out. What was it? I just saw it on Twitter today. One of the game development studios that was talking about how like some of the developers are upset because they were told you got to work 100 hours a week. We got to get this game out. You know what I mean? Like that will blow back and slow the game down long term. Which I mean, I have no idea what the situation. I'm not trying to tell them how to run their business, right? But I just don't want to see 6 months from now we see developers leaving the company because you can't work 100 hours a week. That doesn't work for months on it. So.
It doesn't. And we know they're very dedicated. We've seen them during stress tests where we're sitting there going, it's like a Friday, 11 o'clock PST. They're still there resetting servers. I mean, I work in IT. I've been there. I could do it once in a while, and after that, I'm like, I'm done.
For specific circumstances, specific times, specific crunches, that's great. But for them to accomplish everything they need to accomplish in a year, I don't know. It's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be interesting.
Tell you what, guys, I'll bet you $20 that they make it.
Yeah?
I'll take that bet.
Make it happen.
I will take.
How are you with everything
by December 31st, 2019. And Steven, if you watch this, I expect a cosmetic if you make it because I supported you first. These guys are all naysaying. I was just over here. Like, all right. But no.
I will take that bet.
Cool. All right. But I was looking actually at the server question, right? Because I was trying to think,
I will even up the ante. I will make an elf character as well when it comes out.
Your main? Oh, you see, you're not going all in there.
Not sure I'm that confident.
I'll make a beardless dwarf if they
there you go.
launch before.
There you go. So just kind of touching real quickly back on the server question, EVE Online apparently has had more than 10,000 in a single realm concurrently.
EVE Online is
I hate that
supercomputer powered by the entire island of Iceland. They are a unique case.
And they slow the game down to like 1 second is actually 2 minutes during these big fights.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's only if they're actually all fighting in one spot, right? Yeah. It's not like they're not spread out.
But when they're spread out like that, it can be seamlessly, like when you cross some invisible boundary, you move from server A to server B.
Right.
Like you can have that happen, that seamless pass through. Yes, that can happen. And maybe that's how they're going to get this 10,000 or whatever. But they've already talked about like what Ziz was saying. And I watched one of their last fights. I guess it was on Twitch. It was supposed to be the $1 million fight. And I'm sitting there going, what's happening now? It's been 10 minutes. Well, that missile is about to hit the Titan. It's been about to hit the Titan for an hour. Well, we're at 3,000 times time dilation. What does that mean? Well, each second is 12 hours.
Right.
So this fight's going to go on for 3 weeks.
Isn't it exciting though? Isn't it exciting for them to be doing a game where part of us were like, I don't even know how it's possible. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And they may not hit the mark, but a lot of games we've had until recently, it's a reskin. It's the same thing we've seen. It's the 50th WoW clone. It's the 100th, Fortnite clone. Like, part of me, it's like, good luck. Like, same with Star Citizen. A lot of people hate on Star Citizen. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but at least they're doing something that someone said is impossible. And the same thing with Ashes of Creation. People say it's impossible, whether it's 10,000 people, whether it's launching in a year, whatever it is. Great. Go for the impossible. Have at it. I wish you the best of luck. I'm on board. Let's do it.
It's one of the reasons why I love working with indie developers so much, because they're the only ones that try. Yes,
Mhm.
because it's not the safe route. And I mean, let's face it, I'm pretty invested in the game. Like, just even how far I backed into the Kickstarter, I'm pretty invested in the game. So I'm not saying that they can't, and I'm hoping they hit it. I'm just coming from a realistic point of view where I fully expect, and I think I've wrote this somewhere in our Discord or in the official Discord, I'm expecting that 10,000 people per server is going to get walked back, and there will be some PR spin on it, something along the lines of, in order to facilitate more strategic combat,
Right.
we are going to lower the amount of people on a server to X to avoid massive zergs. When in reality, it's, we don't have time dilation in an action combat game to fit 2,000 people on the freaking screen at once. Not even Eve can do that.
Let's say they do cut it in half, right? You could still have that situation. You could still have a situation
in half,
where,
I agree. 5,000, I think even WoW has 5,000 server.
Yeah.
I don't think it's concurrent, but again, that engine is fairly old, and
that is
it's
actually
not-
a good point with Eve as well. Eve is a game that's 15 years old. Like, a lot of this is older technology. You had some time to develop new stuff. I'm hoping maybe they have that ability at this point.
I'm sure if you could get Ultima Online to run on Eve server, you could have 10,000 sprites on screen too. Like, I think they've run one of those tests with Camelot Unchained where they had 1,000 different characters walking on the screen already, just to show their server could do it. It wasn't the prettiest thing I've ever seen because it was just a gray box of 1,000 naked models walking back and forth. But to prove that it could happen, I just don't think it's going to happen smoothly.
Probably not. But
anyone remember Warhammer Online when they did their big city sieges and their tech couldn't have it? So what did they add? What was it called? The Winds of Change, which would randomly port people out because there were too many people in the siege. You have been affected by the winds of change, and all of a sudden you're ported outside the server. It's like, oh.
Or Guild Wars 2, polling.
No, couldn't see anyone. Yeah.
So lots of potential problems. I mean, one thing you can say though is that they have hired some of the very best developers that are available.
Yeah.
So we're talking about PlanetSide 2. The guy who is doing their engine is the one who did PlanetSide 2, who set records for concurrent players in battles. So, I mean, I don't think they're just making up numbers, right? I mean, because they're not trying to sell box prices at this time. You know what I mean? Like they're not just trying to trick people into buying the game with these flashy numbers, right? At least my opinion, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're giving their best case scenario, what they think might happen, which usually maybe you want to give your worst case scenario, right? Under promise, over deliver.
Yep.
Right. They're kind of doing maybe the opposite, I think. I don't know. Maybe they have it working right now. Maybe they're going to watch this video. They're playing on the other screen. They're like, you guys have no idea. I would love that. Just come out of nowhere and blow our socks off. That'd be great. So
I love when Steven proves me wrong and I have to do those I'm sorry videos where I eat sandals or something like that. 'Cause that does happen. And I love when that happens. I love to be proved wrong when my realism gets, guess what? We just pulled something that you didn't think was possible. I'm like, awesome, because I didn't think it was possible doesn't mean I don't want it to happen. I just am not going to get so hyped up into something to say, I'm not going to blindly take people at the word, or else we get EverQuest Next.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wait, we don't have EverQuest Next, right?
Right.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
See, like, I do have some faith, but I think we're actually running out of time here, guys. So we're gonna go ahead. Oh, you're good. You're good. That's why I brought you guys on. All right, so we're gonna kind of finish it up here. We're gonna kind of do like a little bit of an outro. So, Danny, why don't we start off with you? Just say where people can find you, where they can find you in the world, and a little bit about yourself.
You can find me on Twitch. I mainly stream on there. I'll be streaming when the NDA lifts, whether that will be good decision or not, but I'll be there. And find me there and enjoy me destroying everyone in Battle Royale.
Heck yeah, man.
Are you still on Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Ooh.
That's not gonna happen then.
Good luck, friend. Good luck.
We're since this
Thanks.
is a battle royale and Hunger Games, I'll do the. There you go.
Well, I
All right.
thank you.
Rock, man. All right, Jealous. Go ahead.
You guys probably all know who I am, so I'm a bit short. If you want to follow me, dungeoncrawlnetwork.com. That's links to all of our stuff, our guild site, our podcast, fun things like that. There you go. And you will find me dying in Battle Royale because people like to headshot me with that miasma bow, and I just suck. So, I have no delusions of grandeur there.
You gotta wiggle, man. You always gotta keep moving. You always gotta be on your toes. Don't stand still.
Shimmy, shimmy. The gecko walk.
Yes. All right, Ziz, go ahead, man.
Nobody dies better than me, Angelos. So I'll one up you there. Yeah, you can catch my YouTube /itziz, same with twitch.tv/itziz. And yeah, MMOs, AOC is the biggest one coming up. So lots of content. I'm excited. I'm so glad to hang out with you guys and great cast. Cross your fingers. Everything will work perfectly.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Sinbad. I'm the leader of Ember. We're basically an AOC exclusive guild at this point. We do have a pretty awesome community as well that plays different games, watches different movies, hangs out together in our Discord on a daily basis. It's probably one of the most active places you can be right now while you're waiting for AOC to launch. If you want to come check us out, our information is down below. You can also visit us at our website, which is embers.us. We also have a Twitch team as well, where you can see people like Danny and other streamers right there on the Twitch team website, which is going to be linked down below as well. We are a PVX guild, so if you're interested in doing a little bit of everything, if you're interested in hardcore raiding or even less hardcore raiding, just kind of the easier stuff, if you're just getting into it, we're going to have that there for you. We're going to have stuff as well for PvP. We're going to have trade runs. We're going to have a lot of different things you can do with us as a guild. So feel free to check us out. Come on by our Discord. We'll be happy to welcome you on board. For now then, guys, thank you for tuning in to another week, and you have a great night. All right, bye-bye.
Peace.
This fire. I was born to be making history. Something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.